This story follows our protagonist Yang Jun, who just a moment ago felt completely normal, but suddenly everything turned dark. He cursed under his breath, wondering what the hell was going on. Just a moment ago, he had been feeling perfectly fine. So why had his vision suddenly gone completely black? He thought about how he had even paid this month's electricity bill for nothing. Then he paused. Something felt wrong. It did not feel like the power had gone out. Instead, it felt as if his eyes were covered by something. As he lifted the obstruction from his face, his eyes widened in shock. Sweat dripped down his face as he realized something was terribly off. He looked down at his hands, which didn't look normal. Then he touched the object above his head. There was a red spotted cap above him. Seeing that, his expression froze, and silence fell over him. He realized that he was no longer human. He had turned into a mushroom. He exploded in anger, shouting in disbelief, wondering what the hell this mess was. Looking down at his tiny mushroom body and the puddle beneath him, he felt his mind spinning. Trying to calm himself, he forced his thoughts to rewind. Thinking about earlier, a blurry memory surfaced in his mind. A woman lay on a bed, her body covered in sweat, letting out soft moans. The scene was heated and intense. At the same time, he remembered himself, flushed, breathing heavily, sweat dripping down as he was above her, completely immersed in the moment. Then realization struck him like lightning. He had overdone it and died in the process, only to be reincarnated as a mushroom monster. Disbelief washed over him. He thought there was no way this could be real. How was he supposed to pick up girls looking like this? He flailed his small arms wildly and screamed for his old life back, demanding the return of his handsome face. Just as his frustration reached its peak, a voice suddenly called him Brother Xingbao. His body froze. Slowly, he turned his head. Not far away, near a wall, a shadowy figure stood in the distance. His eyes widened in shock, the image before him instantly capturing his attention. A beautiful woman appeared in his vision, surrounded by a soft, dreamy atmosphere filled with floating hearts. For a brief moment, his mind went blank as he stared at her. Then excitement surged through him. He realized that even in this strange place, there were actually beautiful girls. But as he rubbed his eyes to see clearly, his mood flipped completely. It was not a human girl, but another mushroom creature like him. She was a girl, and looking at him, she wondered why Brother Xingbao was saying so many weird things today. Hearing that, his excitement instantly faded. His expression went blank again. After a moment of silence, he came to a dull realization. It turned out he had just been horny. He looked at the other mushroom creature in confusion, and asked what it meant, questioning what he usually said. The other calmly replied that mushroom men usually only said one thing. It raised 3 fingers and told him that they say intruders, kill them, and scream in fear. Hearing this, Yang Jun froze, completely stunned. He struggled to understand what was happening, but suddenly a loud shout echoed, warning of intruders. The scene shifted behind him as the ground trembled, and a massive foot slammed down nearby with force. A terrifying figure emerged from the darkness, an orc with glowing red eyes, breathing heavily as it stared forward with killing intent. There were 2 orcs who marched forward inside the dungeon. One was a level 1 orc archer, while the other was a level 1 orc warrior carrying a large blade. The archer orc called out to his companion, Kabu, asking if the 2 of them would really be fine without a healer. The warrior orc calmly reassured him not to worry. He explained that the monsters in this dungeon were at the lowest level. According to him, dungeon monsters were stupid, and their attack routes and movements followed fixed patterns. At that very moment, a small figure burst forward. It was a level 1 little mushroom, who suddenly leaped into the air with glowing red eyes and shouted that it would kill them. But before its attack could land, the warrior orc struck the little mushroom with its massive axe. The mushroom let out a cry as purple blood splattered through the air. The warrior orc looked at his companion and smugly asked if she saw that, reminding her of what he had said. Seeing that, the archer orc replied that it looked like they could speedrun the dungeon again today. In the next instant, from the shadows, multiple mushrooms emerged, their red eyes glowing with murderous intent. Together, they shouted that they would kill them all. The warrior orc immediately swung his axe in every direction. Mushroom bodies were sliced apart, caps and limbs flying everywhere as purple blood splashed across the battlefield. Yang Jun and the female mushroom peeked over a wooden ledge, staring at the chaos below. Yang Jun trembled in shock, unable to process what he was seeing. After a moment, he questioned her about why mushroom men always charge straight into danger like that. He asked if they did not know how to run away when they could not win. The female mushroom turned her head slightly, and answered that they mushroom men were NPCs, and everything they did was programmed. They were not as free as players. Yang Jun blinked in confusion. He asked if those two orcs were players. He admitted that he had always thought players were usually humans. The female mushroom replied that she was just an NPC with a few extra lines of exposition. That was all she knew. But before they could say anything else, suddenly a powerful strike slammed into the wooden barrier in front of them, shattering it into splinters. The impact sent debris flying past their faces. In the distance, through the dust and cracks spreading across the ground, Yang Jun saw the silhouette of that orc archer. The orc archer stood in the shattered dungeon, his red eyes glowing as he pulled back the bowstring. The arrow trembled under the tension, aimed directly at the mushroom men hiding behind the broken barrier. Seeing the cracked ceiling and the incoming attack, Yang Jun immediately ran away, yelling that this was insane. While running, he screamed for the female mushroom to run too. But instead of running, the female mushroom just stood there. Seeing that, Yang Jun stopped, confusion flickering across his face. Yang Jun rushed toward the female mushroom and shouted, demanding to know what she was waiting for. He told her to run immediately. But the female mushroom's glowing yellow eyes remained calm. In a steady voice, she explained that fleeing was not an option in the mushroom men's programming. Hearing that, Yang Jun stretched out his arm and shouted for the female mushroom to grab his hand. As the female mushroom grabbed his hand, a strange distortion rippled across the scene. The female mushroom's body flickered with red, glitch-like lines, as if the world itself was breaking around her. Red warning panels flooded the air, overlapping one another as the system blared the same message again and again. Data anomaly detected. The alerts stacked endlessly, flashing across the screen in chaotic layers. Yang Jun tightened his grip on the female mushroom as glitch-like distortions rippled around them. His body flickered with fragmented light, but he shouted fiercely that he did not care about programming or any anomaly. Through the distortion, the female mushroom looked at him in shock and called him Brother Xingbao. Yang Jun pulled her and broke that system restriction. He declared that surviving came first. With a burst of force, he pulled the female mushroom with him. In the distance, the archer orc stared in disbelief. He questioned since when mushroom men were able to run away and wondered if what he was seeing was even possible. The warrior orc frowned and muttered that it had to be a bug. He said he would fill out a form and submit it to the admin once they got out. But the archer orc growled that bug or not, they could not let the two escaped mushrooms get away. Hearing that, the warrior orc said that he would then log out to submit the report first, and warned the archer orc not to die. Hearing that, the archer orc scoffed angrily, asking if he was being serious. She declared that there was no way she would die in a place like this. On the other hand, while running away, Yang Jun looked around the cave and asked if there were any usable weapons inside. The female mushroom immediately replied that there were none. The mushroom men in this place were programmed to remain unarmed. As she said that, suddenly something caught Yang Jun's attention. He was surprised as a large treasure chest came into view. Excited, he suggested that if there were treasure chests here, then maybe, if luck was on their side, they could find a weapon inside. But the female mushroom quickly reminded him that those chests were designed exclusively for players. Mushroom men were not allowed to open them. She began to say that they simply could not, but before she could finish, the air distorted violently. Right before Yang Jun touched the chest, bright red warning windows flooded the scene again, overlapping one another as the words "warning data anomaly" flashed repeatedly across the screen. Glitch-like energy surrounded Yang Jun's body, crackling with unnatural light. But as he pushed, in the next instant, with a loud crash, the chest burst open, sparks and energy scattering everywhere. The female mushroom stared at him in shock. She could not believe what she was seeing. The old brother Xingbao would never have been able to do something like this. She wondered how Xingbao had suddenly become so different. Meanwhile, Yang Jun leaned over the open chest and excitedly shouted that there was a lot of good stuff inside. He began rummaging through it without hesitation. But the female mushroom suddenly noticed something. With violent gusts spiraling through the air, an arrow shot forward at incredible speed, heading straight toward Yang Jun. Seeing that arrow, the female mushroom ran toward Yang Jun. Inside her heart, she felt confused. She admitted that she did not know why she had taken such a step either. Mushroom men were never programmed to save their teammates. But regardless of the reason, one thought burned fiercely within her. She would never allow anyone to hurt her brother Xingbao. With that resolve, she moved without fear and blocked the arrow. Yang Jun watched with wide eyes as purple blood splashed through the air. shock filling his expression at the sight of the female mushroom's overwhelming determination. The arrow tore through the air at terrifying speed, piercing the female mushroom's body. The next second, the archer orc's voice echoed through the cave, declaring that the second shot was coming. Another arrow shot forward like a black streak, spiraling with force as it aimed straight for Yang Jun's body. But at the last moment, Yang Jun, who was holding a knife he had taken out from the chest, moved. With a sharp motion, he deflected the arrow. Sparks burst where the projectile struck, scattering orange light in all directions. From a higher ledge, the archer orc stared down in disbelief. His grip tightened around his bow as shock filled his expression. He could not believe what he was seeing. A lowest-level mushroom monster had deflected her arrow. Her gaze shifted toward the opened treasure chest nearby. She couldn't believe that this chest was something only players could open. Sweat rolled down her face as she stared at the tiny mushroom and muttered in shock that the bug was pretty huge. Meanwhile, outside the dungeon, Warrior Orc reported the bugs they had found this time. A shadowy figure standing nearby replied calmly that he understood. Warrior Orc frowned and questioned how long these dungeons had been running, wondering why there were still bugs. From within the shadows, the cloaked figure with glowing eyes explained that it was precisely because the dungeons had been running for so long that oversights during maintenance were inevitable. It was not surprising that various small bugs would appear. He continued, revealing that after defeating the human coalition, the Great Lich had feared the heroes would cause trouble with nothing to do, so he had designed the dungeon system for the heroes' entertainment. Since then, the heroes had entered the dungeon as players to grind monsters, farm resources, and level up to kill their boring time. If players discovered a bug, they would submit it to the necromancers, the administrators, and wait for them to fix it. But inside the dungeon, that archer orc said that there was no need to wait. This time, she would fix it herself. With that declaration, she drew her bow and launched forward. The arrow shot down once more, slicing through the air toward Yang Jun. At the last second, Yang Jun twisted his body sharply and dodged the arrow. Then with full force, he swung his blade down, cutting the arrow in two. He looked at his body in surprise, and admitted that the movements felt incredibly agile. He realized that this mushroom man body's base stats were actually pretty good. The next second, Archer Orc shot more arrows from above. But one after another, Yang Jun dodged and blocked them with his blade. However, even with his speed, he realized something troubling. It was not easy to close the distance under continuous fire with such short little legs. His gaze flickered toward the opened treasure chest nearby. He paused for a brief moment, thinking quickly. He wondered if there was anything he could use to block the arrows. Yang Jun moved without hesitation, and with a swift motion, he tore the lid off the treasure chest. Just as another arrow came toward him, he raised the lid of the chest and used it as a shield to block the arrow. More arrows followed immediately, but he blocked them all with his shield. From above, Archer Orc froze in disbelief. She could not understand what she was seeing. A mere mushroom man was actually using a chest lid as a shield. As she pulled back her bowstring again, confusion flickered across her face. These actions and behaviors were far too calculated. They were exactly like those of a human. Thinking that, she shot more and more arrows. Multiple arrows rained down, but Yang Jun blocked them with his shield and started to advance toward the Archer Orc. Nothing could get past Yang Jun's shield, and he closed the distance between himself and the Archer Orc, then immediately jumped to attack her. Seeing this, the Archer Orc's eyes widened in shock. She stared at the charging mushroom, and shouted in disbelief that it was a player. In the next instant, Yang Jun shot forward in a blur, closing the remaining distance in a heartbeat. Before the Archer Orc could react, a sharp strike landed. Blood splattered across the ground as the blade cut cleanly through the Archer Orc. The Archer Orc's body collapsed heavily onto the cracked earth as Yang Jun stood nearby. A translucent blue interface suddenly appeared before him. It congratulated him on achieving first blood. He had unlocked the Mushroom Man racial talent, Mycelial Network. Through the Mycelial Network, he could link with minions to transmit information and spores, and share their skills and experience. Once experience was full, he could level up. He had also unlocked another racial talent, Plant Mushroom. Plant Mushroom allowed him to plant himself or his Mushroom Man teammates on enemy corpses or other nutrient-rich places to absorb nutrients and restore HP. After full absorption, he could also acquire the enemy's class and skills. There was even a Shroom form switch, allowing him to switch between Mushroom Man and a reshaped form. Seeing that, Yang Jun blinked in surprise. He wondered if he had obtained a system, After a brief pause, he thought that since he had already reincarnated as a mushroom man, having a system was nothing to be surprised about. He then raised his legs and activated his plant mushroom skill. While doing that, he pressed his small legs onto the fallen archer orc's body. Immediately, a faint glow began to spread from beneath his palm. Soft pink particles flickered and swirled as energy flowed into him. Almost instantly, a strange sensation rushed through his body. He trembled as warmth surged inside him, spreading from his core to every limb. In a dazed voice, he exclaimed that it felt incredibly good, so intoxicating that he could barely contain himself. Crackling red energy danced across his body like lightning. Hearts seemed to float around him as the pleasure intensified. He felt as though he was about to lose himself completely. But suddenly, his eyes snapped open. The overwhelming sensation faded as he steadied himself. He turned and looked at that female mushroom who had died from the archer orc's attack. He placed the female mushroom's body on the archer orc's corpse, saying that since she had blocked an arrow for him earlier, now it was his turn to save her. He extended his hand, and red energy gathered around it as he activated his plant mushroom skill. Red energy spiraled violently at the center of the archer orc's body. Immediately, 3 glowing streams rose from the orc's body. They twisted together, forming a spinning core of light. Then they shot upward. A towering pillar of crimson light erupted from the fallen body. Sparks drifted everywhere as the power intensified. Within the column of light, a figure slowly began to take shape. First came the outline of slender legs, then the curve of a torso, and finally the full silhouette of a woman emerging from the glowing energy. A tall female figure stood where the corpse had been, her form outlined in radiant crimson. Yang Jun stared at the result of his skill. Overwhelmed by her beauty, he let out a stunned exclamation. Blood suddenly spurted from his nose. Unable to handle the sight before him, that woman stepped forward calmly. She had long dark hair and wore a deep red and black outfit that shimmered faintly with lingering energy. A blue system panel appeared before him, displaying that she was level 2. It identified the new subordinate as a mushroom man archer, ranked as guard, class archer, with agility as the primary stat. Her racial talent was mushroom man mycelium. After taking damage, she could extend her mycelium to absorb nutrients from enemy corpses to heal herself. During the healing process, she could also absorb the enemy's special skills and racial talents. It showed that one racial talent had been absorbed, Orc Berserk. The cooldown was 5 minutes. Once activated, it would increase damage dealt by 30% for 20 seconds. It noted that she specialized in ranged shooting, and possessed a species skill called Parasitic Spore Bullet, allowing her to fire spore bullets at enemies to drain their nutrients without them easily noticing, restoring her own HP. Then that female knelt respectfully before Yang Jun. She greeted him as her chief and asked him to give her a name. Another system prompt appeared, stating that Yang Jun had cultivated his first mushroom man subordinate and should give her a name. Yang Jun folded his arms and muttered thoughtfully, wondering if mushroom men were usually nameless. He scratched his head and decided to think carefully. After a moment, his eyes widened as inspiration struck. With a serious expression, he declared that she would be called Saifen. That female archer nodded calmly and replied that from now on her name was Saifen. She then looked at him with steady eyes and asked which instance realm they were going to clear next. Yang Jun looked at Saifeng and questioned what she meant by clearing an instance realm. He reminded her that they were monsters, mere NPCs within this world. Then his expression darkened, and his eyes glowed with a sinister red light. He declared that their top priority right now was to kill the remaining player. Not far away, the bones of that archer orc lay scattered across the ground, but with a sudden explosive force, the bones burst apart, fragments flying in every direction. It was that warrior orc. He gritted his teeth as he stared at the destruction. Shock filled his face as he realized that Archer Orc Labu had actually been killed by the trashiest monster. He clenched his weapon tightly and muttered that a normal level 1 mushroom man could not possibly accomplish something like that. A thought struck him. He looked toward the distant silhouette standing amid the ruins and wondered if it could be a rare elite. Warrior Orc licked his lips and sneered, convinced that the trip had been worth it. In his mind, rare elites always dropped excellent loot. If luck was on his side and he managed to obtain a piece of blue-grade gear, he could make a fortune. With a sudden roar, he activated his skill, Orc Charge. The ground cracked beneath his feet as he launched forward like a cannonball, his massive axe carving through the air. Dust and debris exploded around him as he hurtled straight toward Yang Jun. Yang Jun stood his ground, staring at the charging warrior as the distance between them vanished in an instant. At the last moment, he jumped to the side, dodging the attack. That warrior orc slammed into the wall behind him. The impact sent shockwaves across the battlefield. As the warrior orc turned, he saw that there was a cut on his leg, and blood was flowing out of it. It was Yang Jun, who had used his blade to cut the orc while dodging. But watching carefully, Yang Jun realized that this warrior orc was far tougher than the previous archer. A single slash had caused only minimal damage. A bead of sweat slid down his face as he assessed the situation, fully aware that this fight would not be easy. On the other hand, the orc's face twisted with rage as he glared at the small figure before him. He cursed the mushroom man, furious that such a lowly creature had actually managed to injure him. But before he could attack again, with a violent burst of speed, Yang Jun dashed forward, running away from there. He opened a wooden door and went inside. On the other side of that door, there was a river and a wooden dock to cross it. With a burst of explosive force, that warrior orc smashed through the wooden door and entered the area. As he stepped inside, he saw the dock, and amid the rising smoke, Yang Jun stood quietly at the edge of it, staring back at the warrior orc. Warrior orc narrowed his glowing red eyes as he stared at the mushroom man standing silently at the edge of the dock. Confusion flickered through his mind. The creature was no longer running. It was simply standing there, staring blankly. He wondered why it was not trying to escape. A faint sense of unease crept into his thoughts. It felt like a trap. Yet no matter how strange it seemed, he reminded himself that it was still just an NPC. Then Yang Jun slowly raised his middle finger and showed it to the warrior orc. That gesture made the orc's veins bulge with fury. His eyes flared brighter, and anger exploded across his face. He roared in outrage, accusing the creature of mocking him. With a deafening shout, he swore that he would chop the mushroom man into paste. Gripping his massive blade tightly, he lunged forward, swinging with full force. But just as he stepped onto the dock, the planks supporting it, which had already been cut by Yang Jun, started trembling. Unaware of this, the warrior orc charged at Yang Jun and raised his massive axe to attack. But right before the attack landed, the dock underneath his feet broke apart. The entire dock collapsed, and the warrior orc crashed through the broken planks, plunging straight into the water. A massive splash erupted as his body crashed into the surface, waves surging outward in all directions. Soaked and enraged, the orc rose from the water, glaring upward with blazing red eyes. He shouted that the despicable mushroom monster had dared to ambush him. From above, Yang Jun looked down without emotion, and remarked that the orc had even dropped his weapon in his panic. He added coldly that the orc's movement was now restricted in the water. Then, with full power, Yang Jun threw his blade at the warrior orc. It struck and cut the orc on the shoulder, but the orc sneered despite the blood running down his shoulder. He scoffed that even if he was unarmed and his movements were restricted, the mushroom man's weak strength could not possibly harm him. But in the next instant, a descending arrow pierced through his neck. Blood burst from his throat as shock filled his face.